All right, check, check, radio check. It's 4:30 Apple time. So want to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to hop on our weekly chat with Chris. We're coming to the end of the year, so a lot of things going on, but just want to make sure, first of all, that you can hear me. Everything's good. So let me check chat. Chris, all right, co-host. So let me make sure Caitlin is co-host. I thought she was. All right, so we're good there. All right, and good to go. All right, so want to say thank you to all of you. If somebody wouldn't mind typing in the chat that you can hear me, see me, that we're good, and that there's no technological errors. And we're good. All right. So, without further ado, November is has been deemed Long-Term Care Awareness Month. And so we've talked about a couple different, thoughts and strategies, and this is more of a holistic call. There is a carrier that I am going to spotlight because they're very unique. Last week it was Equitrust had two different solutions, and one of those being a guaranteed option. If you're in better health, and what I will precursor to the slides is you must qualify. This is underwritings involved. But let's talk about, the reality. What I find and have found in my career is that, you don't know what you don't know. And, when my grandfather there is on the left, he served in the Air Force. And like a lot of people back in the military and back in that time, smoked. And he smoked, and as he aged, he had a hardening of the arteries, and he ended up having to have both of his legs amputated, and so he was bedridden. And I remember as a kid going to Florida, and my grandmother at the time was doing her best to take care of him. And I remember at one point in time that my mom telling me my grandfather had to go into a nursing home. Well, now, knowing what I know, at the time, my grandmother had to sign over the house in order for him to be taken care of. Now, the way the rules work is they won't kick out the spouse at the time. But I point out to you because, care is not free, right? And that's my big point here. At the time, this is going back a year, maybe 2 years ago, the fair market value of the house that my grandparents lived in that was part of our circle of wealth that ended up getting confiscated by the system. And now that's a $400,000 asset that could have been in my family, my children, my grandchildren. But because products and the system, they needed to be reimbursed. And so when my grandmother put them in, they didn't take the house. But what did happen is my grandmother ended up getting sick later on herself. After my grandfather passed, my grandmother stayed there for a while and she got ill and she had to go into a nursing home. My mom, we lost my uncle a long time ago, but my mom was the only sibling left up here in New Jersey. And, we're up here. And so she went into a nursing home and they took the house like that. And then she got better. So she had nowhere to go. So we moved her up here to North Branch, and that's where she spent her remaining years. But my point here is the entire state was consumed because products and just we didn't understand any other option. So, what I wanted to point out to you is how much does 24-hour custodial care cost in New Jersey? Now, it's expensive. At roughly, I Googled it, and 24-hour custodial care, also known as living care, can roughly cost $325 a day. But depending on the level of care, times 365 days, that's roughly 120 grand a year. Right now in today's dollars, right? That's for in-home care. I'm sorry, in nursing home care. But there's other types of care. There's companion care, or maybe certified home health care. And if I remember, I went and saw somebody. I didn't realize at the time, but it was up in um, like Montvale or Montclair. It was Montclair, and I remember going to this house, and this gentleman was there. He was all alone, big old house, Victorian house in Montclair, New Jersey. And there was a caretaker there, just he had no extended family, he had nobody. And, so I just, at the time, I didn't put two and two together, but that's what happens. If you have a spouse, you have family, somebody can offset those 24 hours a day. But as you can see here, that the extra, to have the ability to stay at home actually costs more, depending on the type of care that you need. So the whole reason is, I've found in my career, and I've been doing this for over 30 years and specialized in long-term care in the last 20 years. Quite often we as human beings look at, especially men, look at ourselves and go, yeah, but it's not going to happen to me. But, I think what we'll discover here is you may be right, but why take the risk? Or if there was another way, what would you do? So these are the three questions I'd like to leave everybody with, right? The first is if you got sick and needed extended care, custodial care, long-term care, would you want to receive care in your home where you are right now or a nursing home? Not a right or wrong answer, but if you had your preference, right? Most people, I think 90% of people that I ask that question to will say in their existing home. All right. So now that we've determined that and we've already looked at the cost, which asset that you currently own, maybe it's the house that you're talking about the care, maybe you have an old IRA, or maybe you tap into the utility of family, right? Which and asking, clients over the years, nobody ever says, "Hey, my family will take care of me." Although they would, I know my wife would take care of me, but there's a difference between being a caretaker and a supervisor of care. So, how can we do this? And then lastly, would you be open to a solution if we could help? And again, there's no guarantees depending on, the complexities or your specifics. We have to be creative, but there's not a right or wrong answer here, right? But if it's a spouse or a family member, that and you take the approach of, I'll worry about it later, there will be consequences, whether they be financially or physically, right? There will be consequences. So the company I'm going to talk about today is their name is One America. One America is an A-rated company. These are all their specifics. You can look at them. They really are a very strong company. And the reason I'm promoting this company, I mean, there's other companies, long-term care from 20 years ago. This, if you've researched it, looked at it, you'll hear me use the term traditional long-term care. And the problem with traditional long-term care, as not John Hancock, who is Genworth, they didn't understand the risk that they were taking, and so all these companies, insurance companies, that stepped into the caretaking insurance arena didn't really have the data to be able to price their products correctly. And even the products that I sold early in my career, I didn't fully understand that the rates were not guaranteed. They could, based on not specific claims. So if a policyholder bought a contract, and we'll say back in the day, it was Penn Treaty, right? Penn Treaty, collects the premium for a 65-year-old female, and then 10 years into the contract, they have incrementally increased the premiums, and they were nuisances. But that they can do. But when they start to do that, every time they decide with all the policyholders for all at that time, 65-year-old females that bought it, that they can't just single out that person because that person's having a claim. That's illegal. However, they can approach the state of New Jersey, because that's where I wrote the contract, and say, you know what, we mispriced our product, and we need permission to pass increases on to the insurance or to the insured. And it's called a block increase, right? So a block of business. And all long-term care companies have done that several times, which is why, regardless of the company, you have seen if you bought old traditional long-term care in the past, or you investigated and you looked at the premium, or you read articles, you'll find out two things. A, the rates weren't guaranteed, and it was use it or lose it. And that's why long-term care, the old way that it was purchased, actually has a negative stigma. But products have improved. Tax codes actually are affording benefits, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. But understand that what I'm talking about is something called asset-based long-term care. What that basically means is that you can live, quit, or die. Now, the quit part is not 100% reimbursement like some of the original contracts, but it's pretty close, and you'll see that here momentarily. But before I get way out in front over my skis, I don't want to be guilty of talking at such a high level about information that I'm familiar with and most people may not be aware of. So no one wants to think about the possibility of needing care, and that is human nature. We don't like to think about it. We don't want to worry. As I mentioned, typically the male will say, "Don't worry about it. I got it. You're going to be okay. We got money." But the true time that actually manifests itself, the male typically because of mortality, women live longer than men, and you'll see that is just negative thinking or can have negative consequences. But what happens is, in order for all benefits to be paid from whether it be from a rider, whether it be from a life insurance contract or from long-term care, there's codes of the IRS, right? It's either under 7702B, which or 101G. That's just fancy, more deep than I want to get into today. But basically, what it says is 2 out of 6 ADLs, activities of daily living. When you can't perform two of these, bathing, continence, dressing, eating, toileting, transferring, if you can't do two of these, you are now eligible to receive a benefit, right? And so it might seem simple, but when, if you've ever sat with a loved one, and let's say it's something like Alzheimer's, right, which can creep up on us, and slowly we start to become forgetful. We forget to eat. We forget how to change ourselves. And I've shared this story in the past that I had a client that was 300 plus, and his wife was a nurse. But how many times can she take him in and out of bed? My grandmother, same thing with an invalid. So transferring, helping them to go to the bathroom. When we get married and we say for better or for worse, in sickness and health, and we're young, and you really are well-meaning when you make these promises and commitments. But when we're 65, 70, 75, 80, can we physically do that? Do we need help? This is such an epidemic need in this country. That's why I'm so passionate about it. So I created this sort of fictitious client. You may remember from back in the day, the Flintstones. So Fred Flintstone and Wilma Flintstone, and he was in the pharma, and they made his birthday my age, 1964. So a 60-year-old and a female here. Maybe she's 59, and she's still working. So I put all this out there because what I wanted you to see is this is just, you got money all over the place. This is one of the tools that we've just adopted that you're going to have access to. But I really like this roadmap because one of the things that people can do is, hey, I'm interested in that asset-based long-term care you were talking about. Okay, so that's why there's nothing there. But one of the suggestions can be, and I see this quite often, that people, and when I just finished up 2 workshops at Rutgers, and I'll ask the question. I said, how many people have a junk drawer at home that they've acquired stuff over the years? And almost everybody puts up their hands. So with that, Junk drawers, one of the things we do to sort of go out there and sort of get our heads around and understand how many rubber bands and pens and scissors and scotch tape that we have, right? We get an organizer, right? Well, that's what Asset Map is, and you'll have access to this, and there's no obligation. You can just scan the QR code at the end. You'll be able to build this out. I built this out as a model to show you that, hey, listen, when you turn around and do this, sometimes people will have an old 401k just sitting out there idle. Maybe they left it behind. They didn't know what else to do with it. They really don't need the money, whatever. There's a multitude of reasons, right? But my point is, this is why I'm spotlighting this company because old 401ks, old IRAs are what we call qualified money. That means taxes have not been paid on it. Now, there's very strict rules on the government's going to need and want the taxes that are due on those accounts. But being strategic on how we start to disperse that over time is really prudent, and that's part of what we specialize at. So this company, what happens is, in this example, I didn't use every nickel. I said $200,000 for a joint life, husband and wife. What they offer, and this is just, again, probably more technical than I need to get into. You basically have to go through underwriting. You take the app for both a husband and wife, and let's say that they're approved, and they say, hey, we're going to move $200,000 into this account. It goes from an IRA or a 401k into an IRA into an annuity, right? That's how it's able to pass tax free. And in doing that, they give you a 25% bonus. And that's really to help offset the taxes that are due on that. So it's not uncommon in the insurance industries for annuities to pay a bonus. So that's why if you just say, hey, this is a 10 pay, so now we have that 200 is now 250, and then out of the annuity every year they're going to take $25,000 and put it into a whole life contract. That's why you have to qualify for it. And the death benefit is what is afforded the tax code benefits to be able to transfer if utilized for either death or long-term care income tax free. It's really, really cool, right? So your $200,000 is a bonus. And so here's what I want to just point out some nomenclature. And again, just I'm not going to get overly deep, but I just want you to see that the way that they do it first, understand that this is the only carrier that will do joint life for life. No other insurance carrier in the world will do that right now. So basically, that $200,000 goes in, and they say, hey, for the first part of it, for 33 months, we're going to do an acceleration of benefits. So that's just basically the benefits that were carved out. That's what a portion of the premium is going towards to pay for the long-term care. And then, if needed, it will continue, and that's where they continue for life. And that's why this up here, you see that AOB is the first portion of that, and then there's a line, then it goes to COB, and it clicks on that word unlimited. Unlimited. So if you have a family member, or maybe you do start to step into the onset of dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, things that can be 6, 8, 10 years, right? That you're not wiping out the estate because you've turned around and had medical issues. So then from an illustration standpoint, it's not, this is just a rounding error, which is, okay, the first year, the 250 over 10 years, that's 250,000. That's with the 200 you put in plus the bonus. And then as we go through that, if you turn around and put your premium in, and for whatever reason, you decided to cancel the contract in the first year, I'm going to tell you, don't do it. That's a mistake. Again, but God forbid there was some, reason you needed to do that, you would not get 100% of your money back. That's a surrender charge, right? But if you, let's take that same equation, and let's say that you turn around and you and your spouse were in a car and had a bad day and got hit by a bus in New Jersey. It would pay a death benefit. So the 200 becomes almost 500. And notice it says unlimited, and then it's paying that 94.40. Now we run out there for life. So I just take us out to like I use me and my age. I just turned 60, so that would just take me to 86. It's still 94, in that back year, I went too far. So let's see if I can do that. There we go. So, it's still the 94.40. This did not have inflation built onto it. I just wanted to, there's different options, right? So this is one solution. But then I said, okay, suppose we change the contract just a little bit because we all are now become acutely familiar with inflation lately. This the same, everything else is equal, except we put a 3% rider on there. So that now what happens is you're not going to get as much up front, right? So you still get the 10 pay going in, 25 grand a year, still have the death benefit, but the if you needed it early at age 60, I would not get the 9400, I get 56, but it's also for life. But every year I don't use it, it's going to continue to grow. And notice that after 10 years, it's up to about 7,300. Now I'm 70. Still not probably likely to need. But what I want you to see is that the compounding interest stops after year 20. So the maximum benefit in this example, it would pay out as $10,000 per month per insured. So husband and wife. So again, if both of you needed it. So now as we look about that, this is where I wanted to point out to you. This is not the same couple, so it's a little bit of variance, but I want you to see this person, the red line. I showed this slide before, and I'm going to do a call in this technology here shortly. It's called WellSpan. But let's say this person, John Smith, is married to Mary Smith, and John ended up needing care at 80. And then 8 years of care. That's why it's a red line. That's why it's called care span. And then he died. So that's just basically using technology to look into the future. Said based on your health, your blood work, your height, your weight, your history. We're able to actually use data and technology to forecast your longevity. When I ran mine, it gave me a glimpse into the future of how long I might be on the planet, right? But notice right here that this is when Mary would now be alone, right, from 88 to 92, which is 4 years. And then Mary may need care, probably likely to need care, and another 8 years. So what does that look like mathematically? So if I took it out at 10,105, which is from the illustration previous slide, times 12 months is $121,000 a year, times 8 years is $970,000 that was exhumed from the estate. We now have 4 years a widow, so she's spending money, living on life, whatever her qualified her quality of life is at that time. But when her needs comes in and 10 years in this example, right? So now, right, it's 4 years a widow and it's actually 8 years, but it's the same thing, 970,000 times two. This is $1.8 million that's extracted from the estate. Now, if you don't have that much, that's when the house gets taken. That's when everything that you own is signed over to the system. This is why I'm so passionate about it. I have an expression that I say and I share with people when I ask them, I said, do you know who's going to take care of you in the future? People look at me. It's the person you are today. If you wait until changes of health happen, insurance companies do not take on bad risk. And the way that I explain this, let's say you're driving your car, you don't have insurance. In New Jersey, it's mandatory, but just play along. You have a car accident, not awful, but $3, $4, $5,000 worth of damage. You drive into the parking lot of State Farm or Allstate, and you say, "Yeah, I'd like to insure my car." They will not do it. Insurance companies will not take on a claim knowingly, right? So that's the thing. This is why you got to get it while you can before health steps into the arena. And that's why procrastination can actually be a real detriment to your planning. So I really want to thank everybody for taking time to listen to my explanation here. I am passionate about it. So, that's where the $1.8 million comes in. So if we can help, take a look. If you either have family members, you've gone through this personally, it's something that you'd like us to look at. Again, sometimes, the math is the math. I gotta be able to pull it from somewhere. How we're gonna pay for this or fund it or whatever. That only, with a team approach towards coming up with a solution, there's not always an answer. But quite often, one thing I will say is that with some of the products, not necessarily this product, but if somebody has an illness, maybe they had a stroke, maybe they had a heart attack, right? That you can use like the product that I talked about last time, the bridge product, where we can maybe get 2 to 1 on our leverage, or at least 1.25 guaranteed. So if you're already spending money to a nursing home or for care, just by taking that pool of money that you were pulling from and putting it into some type of solution may be prudent. So this is where I was saying everybody on this call will have access to Asset Map. I would strongly encourage you to use this. This is an organizer. There's no cost to you. You go on, you fill it out. Once it's completed, we'll hop on a call. I'll send you the map, and it's at least allow you to look at this and saying, now you know where everything is. And this is important, especially when one member in the household maybe isn't as in tune to the finances, right? So at least you can say, hey, this is where everything is, and you can put it in a drawer or in a binder, and it'll be there as a resource. So take a picture of that QR code. Happy to help. Lastly, this is my favorite time of the year, right? Thanksgiving pie pickups from Manalina's. Flemington, New Jersey. It's a nice drive. So, Mike and Diane, if you want to do a road trip up from Delaware to Flemington, just let us know. Pick up your pie on November 15th. I think Caitlin just put into the link, the registration list. This is our way of saying thank you to everybody, right? It's a really, this time of year, we have a lot of things going on in the world, but I always say, hug the ones you're with. Life is short, right? We get so caught up in, the day-to-day noise. Sometimes we forget to take a step back and look at the beauty, right? There's a lot of cool things going on. This is a way for us to help you. It is a nice ride, right? Flemington is beautiful this time of year. So if we can help your family enjoy Thanksgiving with a sweet dessert, it's on us. So please take advantage of that. These are the disclosures. The one thing I just wanted to point out, that's that tax code really at the bottom, that's 7702B. If you have an existing contract and somehow you were sold it under the guise of long-term care, understand the difference between 7702B and 101G. Will it truly cover you should an event happen? And that's, quite often an advisor may not fully understand how it works. Sell it as one thing and nobody challenges it. And now the worst time you want to find that out is if there's a claim and a claim's denied, or maybe the contract didn't do what you thought it was going to do. Also, this is Brookstone just saying that, hey, listen, they that's my investment advisory firm saying they have nothing to do with some of the products that we just talked about. So, lastly, this is our disclosure. Thank everybody, and if you need me, reach out. And everybody have a great and safe day.